Indies are a great place to find new experiences and stories in a retro setting. Where the AAA market is usually focused on pushing the industry forward with the latest visuals and mechanics, there is something special about indies that allow them to look back to the past to create something new, and it retains that spirit and style of those games. One of the best examples I have for this is with Legrand Legacy. This was a love letter to JRPGs from the PS1 era. Legrand had the heart and soul of a game made from that time, even down to the style of cutscenes. The combat system was heavily inspired by Shadow Hearts, and in many ways it felt like the game was made for the PS1 and it was released today. I don't mean that it felt dated, but rather it was a long-lost gem from that beloved time. The characters were memorable, the music was captivating, the story was interesting, and it offered a lot of content, from a long story to several side missions to many different mini-games. It is a game that stays with you, and for me it set a high bar for indie RPGs. As I started to play another title, I was feeling that same heart and spirit, but for a different era. RFL is an RPG that aimed to capture the style and quality from the SNES JRPGs. The game's trailer caught my eye as the enhanced edition was making its way to consoles. From the music to the visuals, it looked like it was going to be something special. As I started the game, I found myself continually being impressed with the quality it presented. RFL combines what you expect from an SNES RPG and creates its own unique story, characters, and world. As Legrand Legacy was a love letter to the PS1 era JRPGs, RFL is a love letter to the 16-bit era. I present to you my review for RFL. In RFL, you will be spending most of your time enjoying the narrative, exploring, and in combat. One thing that was most welcome was how the game lets you explore after you complete the first dungeon. The game does a good job of always pointing you in the direction of the next story beat, but there are a lot of opportunities to explore as well. I really appreciated that they let you explore a decent amount, especially from the beginning. This allowed me to go a bit deeper into the world, learn the combat, and collect supplies. Exploring will net you with crafting materials, quests, and bonuses for your characters. As you are walking around, you will see glowing items throughout the environment, and these will give you your crafting materials. The crafting materials can be used to make different potions to aid you, along with being able to upgrade your equipment and weapons. You do not buy new weapons and armor like you would expect, but rather you use your crafting materials to upgrade your current equipment. So in this way, there's more of a set upgrade path for your equipment, but there still is some customization to it. You will unlock these attachment slots that can be fitted with different buffs that help to personalize the upgrades. For example, you can provide your character with more health and defense, or providing you with more gold upon combat victories. As you explore, you will encounter people who will need your help. This usually involves finding an item, collecting something, or killing a set amount of enemies. For the most part, the side missions are not that interesting from a narrative perspective, but each of the missions are worth doing because they provide you with items, gold, or even new opportunities for crafting. While it would have been more engaging to have more involved stories with the side quests, I did like that you are always rewarded for completing them. There are side quests for each of your party members that reward you with a choice of a subclass for them, and these side quests are the most interesting from a narrative perspective, as it has something personal to do with that character. As you progress with the game, you will earn some items that will give you more options in your exploration. There are these secret walls throughout the game that you can blow up that will lead to some extra items, along with earning an ability that turns you into an energy ball, and you can use this to get into areas that you couldn't reach before. While the exploration isn't in depth, it's always enjoyable in that you are rewarded for your time. There are these optional caves and areas, and in many cases you will think, I wonder if I can go there, and you usually can, and it leads to something good. While there is enjoyable exploration, sooner or later you will find yourself in combat. The combat operates like a turn-based battle system. For each turn, you will see who will attack first and in what order. You will give commands to each of your party members, and they will act in accordance with their speed level. You have a decent amount of moves between your 4 players. The 4 party members fit the traditional molds from an archer to a knight to a mage and a healer. You have your basic actions like attack, wait, and defend, while also having unique moves for each of your characters. The character's specific skills will cost you MP. As you fight, your MP will recharge at the end of each turn. MP is really important because this is how you will deal the most damage or heal your party members. You can improve your MP regeneration through potions or how you level up your characters. Also, there's a super move bar that you have at the bottom that is continuously charging throughout the fights. You can use this to use these specific moves from each of your characters to do a lot of damage or heal them. I played the game on Expert and the normal fights put up a decent challenge, but the game provides you with a good amount of difficulty options to really cater to your experience. The boss fights are some of the most fun, especially with their unique elements. In some situations, you will need to contend with bosses who can heal themselves by eating smaller enemies, along with bosses that can grab one of your characters and you need to rescue them before you can use them again. These small tweaks to the boss fights help to keep the fights the most interesting. As you defeat enemies, you will earn experience points. Once you have enough, you will level up and you can choose to slot 10 different attribute points into different slots. This will allow you to help mold the knight into being your knight. So the knight is a heavy damage dealer while also being a tank, and you can improve him in different ways so that you can make him more of a dominant tank or a faster damage critical hit dealer. Early on, you will earn new skills to use in combat. These skills can be improved with items that you find from exploring or buying them at shops. Along with this, once you obtain the character's subclass, more options are provided to the player. When you are presented with your subclass, you will have the choice between 2 options of how you want your character to go. Once you decide on a subclass, each of your skills can be further developed with 2 different choices for each skill. These options can allow a character who attacks all the enemies with a skill that can now heal everybody when they use that attack skill, or a defense skill that can also improve your defense while also improving your critical hit chance. Through the level ups and the subclasses, the leveling and the progression feels more personalized than it initially seems. The subclasses open up more options to the players throughout the game, and this means that you are continuously provided with more combat options throughout the game. Another thing I want to make note of is how the game will always alert you if you are coming to a point of no return. This way you do not accidentally walk into a boss fight or progress with the story when you're just trying to find all the side items. I very much love this feature, and it prevented frustration that is seen in other RPGs. The combat was both familiar and engaging. The progression gives you lots of rewards, along with allowing the player to put their own personalized spin on each character. From a gameplay perspective, this game is familiar, engaging, and fantastic. And this game is further enhanced by a good story. The game starts out with you controlling Lita as she is helping her friend Adrian complete a contract. Throughout their first dungeon, Lita finds a ring and she notices that once she puts it on, she can't take it off. They complete their contract and find out that they need to deliver the ring, but Lita could not take the ring off as it wouldn't leave her. Lita goes about her life as normal as she enters into an archery competition. Here she finds out the ring has magical powers. This leads to the player finding out about ancient elves and a war that was between them and vampires. This all happens within the first chapter. Essentially, Lita is on a mission to save her land and stop the threat of the vampires. The story becomes more interesting as it goes along, and I think it hits a nice stride in chapter 2. The 4 heroes are likable, and I enjoyed their backstories and surprises that you learn about them throughout the story. The world has some interesting lore, and I liked how that was incorporated into some of the characters. There's some decent development with each of the characters, and while some party members get more than others, they all remain likable throughout. I really enjoyed how the game did a good job at landing some of the emotional moments along with being appropriately grand. The ending is satisfying and provides good closure. The story does a good job at balancing the drama with the lighter moments. There are moments where the game is genuinely sweet, and while some might find this a bit cheesy or sappy, I very much enjoyed it. Most of the humor lands, and I like how some of the humor found its way into some of the side areas and pokes fun at its own genre. I do want to praise the story because I do not usually see indies having the best stories. Here I found the story to be enjoyable with a good cast. Overall, I thoroughly loved this game. The story was good and the combat and exploration was very engaging. I encountered a few flaws that I want to make note of here as well. One odd element of this game is the lack of a dedicated battle theme that is consistently used. There are a few instances throughout the story where a specific theme will be used for the combat, but throughout most of the game, the music that is playing while you are exploring is the same music that is used for combat. This is a bit jarring at first because you are expecting a battle theme. While I did find this rather odd, I do want to make note that the music that is present within this game is fantastic, and there isn't a bad track. So while there isn't a traditional battle theme used for the encounters, the music that is present is always great. Another thing I want to make note of is how you can hear when the music track ends, and then there's a bit of dead air, and then the track will start up again. I do think it would have worked better to have the track fade in a loop so that the music is constant without any breaks. Lastly, I really love the look of the game, but I found some of the art that is present for the marketing for the game to look really cheap. But all of these flaws are rather minor, and more things I want to just make note of. Before I conclude this review, I do want to give the soundtrack some time to shine. Here are some tracks from the game. RFL really impressed me. As I started the game, I felt like it was going to be something special, and this was continually confirmed as I kept playing. I was surprised with the enjoyable story. I usually find good stories in indies to be the exception rather than the rule, and they tend to just give you context to the gameplay, but I was genuinely interested about the characters, world, and how the story would end. I greatly appreciated the exploration and additional quests and items you could complete and do. It was rewarding exploring the environments and getting a deeper connection to the area. The combat was familiar and enjoyable with some good boss fights. The leveling and progression kept the rewards continuous and addictive. The presentation captured my attention and the soundtrack was fantastic. RFL fully captures the heart and spirit of a 16-bit JRPG, and I highly recommend you check this one out.